well mitigation program, that was adopted, 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
That was early on, and it wasn't as robust as, we feel will be necessary. And so we're gonna kind of go through some of the reasons for that, including, the submission of a request for an exclusion from the fees, from the state recording and fees for our landowners, so we're gonna work through that today, and we'll just give you some short updates. I don't know if we'll take up the whole time today. It depends on, you know, how deep we go into this mitigation plan, but just thanks to everybody, that is online, and, if you ever have any questions, or, Stacy did send out this mitigation, program this morning. If you have any comments on it, I think we're gonna ask for them, and I'm sure we're gonna reiterate this, but by next Tuesday, was that the deadline? By next Tuesday. So, with that, we'll get started. Thank you.
Yeah. What's the date for Tuesday?
Tuesday is the 29th.
29th, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's give you a couple of quick updates. Kathy, do you want to update everyone on the Tule Trust?
Sure, just a real quick update. I have been serving as the interim, since Susan had left. We have a new executive director, and if you guys met him, he came out to Allensworth on that site visit a couple of weeks ago. Nick Reed-Crace, he's local. He was raised in Porterville area and is familiar with the Tulare County. Did go into the Peace Corps, did some work in Africa, working with small communities, ag and water. And so, he wanted to come home and apply for the job. We're really thrilled to have him. He's only been on board for about a month, but he is working with, he wanted to be here today, but he is meeting with SRT. A couple of things that we're not gonna be doing this year is we're not gonna be doing a land fallowing program like we have the past couple of years. I'm gonna be taking Nick out to look at view the sites that we had for this year, but we're gonna step back. At least for the next year. We had a little funding snag with MLRP, where we thought they were gonna be funding, and we didn't get word that they were gonna be funding half of it until June. So we were kind of biting our nails a little bit about that. So we wanna come back, reassess, work with the GSAs, and see what kind of land fallowing program and funding will work. So that's kind of just in a nutshell. So hopefully you get to meet Nick at the next meeting.
Yeah, no, Deanna and I got a chance to meet him at one of the sidewalks, for Allensworth, which was related to the MLRP program. And, unfortunately didn't get a chance to talk to him too much.
No.
But he seemed like a very, interesting young man, so.
Yeah, we're really thrilled to have him, and, he's moving, he had gone back to Washington DC, and now he's coming home. He's gonna work with us, so we're thrilled.
Yeah, no, we're looking forward to working with him. That's great. Speaking of Allensworth and MLRP, I'll just add very quickly that one of the things that we're working on, is the water security issue for MLRP. I think everyone on this call is probably aware that the MLRP program, has money set aside for, a couple different things within, Tri-County. One was, the local plan, which has been developed and is available for anyone who wants to review. And then the other is part of the water security for the Allensworth community. And we're looking at some options along the White River and going through a conceptual, a study on some of the conceptual design on potential projects that might be feasible for that. There's some interesting projects, but try to figure out how feasible they really are in terms of funding and land purchases and things of that nature. So, there's some challenges still. Quickly, some more updates, unless I see anybody's hand. If you have any questions, please feel free to either ask or raise your hand during the meeting. Tulare Lake update. So both the Tri-County Groundwater Sustainability Plan, and this covers both Tulare Lake and the Tule Subbasin. Right now, the deadline is to submit this before the end of next month. And it doesn't have to be, and Deanna's gonna talk about this in more detail, and I'm probably getting a little bit ahead of myself here, Deanna, but it doesn't have to be the final version. It just needs to be a revised version that is inclusive of our changes, our responses to their comments on the, 22 document that was what they included in their staff report. And we've had a number of conversations with, State Board staff. They have told us in meetings that some of the questions that were specific to Tri-County have been addressed. We're also working with the rest of the Tule subbasin to address some of these concerns. And that takes me, I'm gonna let Deanna's gonna talk a little bit about the timeline, but this well mitigation policy that we're gonna be talking about in just a bit is one of the documents that absolutely has to be included as part of the submittal for this next version of the GSP.
Yes,
Hey, Myron.
Hi, Myron. Are we moving down to the timeline?
Yes, to the timeline, yes. I think it's all related to good time, we're putting it all together.
So a number of, Tule GSAs asked the state for, a timeline as to how we could ask or submit a request for exclusion from reporting and fees. And, the state has said that all requests have to be submitted, on or before September 1st. I think that's a Sunday though, so I think September 2nd is actually the day. With that, they will accept the draft GSPs. They want every adopted policy we have for management and a stated case for why we believe we should be exempt from the fees. And that's why we've been on a timeline adopting our new policies, including the allocation policy, the subsidence management plan. That's why we're getting this well mitigation program in front of you this morning, because I think it's key to have that adopted and have that, all of the adopted policies kind of supersede the GSP in some way, because that's the actual implementation. The GSP is a technical document we're still working through with both subbasins. But we've received a red line from Pixley and Lower Tule. They work directly with the state on their GSPs and received quite a bit of feedback, particularly in the water quality section. We are incorporating those red lines into our GSP for the Tule. And as Amir said, we're finishing up our Tulare Lake. Those will be in draft form. We've already noticed the cities and counties that we intend to adopt the GSP in October. So I think that will probably just be the Tule adopted in October, but we have sent out that noticing, and so full adoption of the plan, and we will also convey that to the state that it'll be fully adopted in October. So that is the timeline.
So the document itself, with what Deanna said, is pretty darn close. There is probably some tweaks that are gonna happen on the water quality, and Tule has made it, Lower Tule, Pixley has made it clear that they are submitting before some of those details may be worked out, and the state is okay with that. So and we will be sending out the draft for public comment as well. But please don't feel, we are gonna turn it in to the state, but we are gonna have to get, we're gonna make it available for everyone for public comment, and you'll have an opportunity to comment on the document. It very much addresses and specifically is oriented towards addressing the concerns that the state raised in their staff report. Those were the items, and you can imagine their main concern, of course, is both is water levels, subsidence, and water quality, and all of those three are, we've got policies in place for those. Myron, you look like you were gonna ask me a question. I'm sorry. Okay. All right. It's just me getting paranoid in my old age. So speaking of meeting with the state, we have a meeting. We've met with them a couple times as just Tri-County, and we have given them a copy of our allocation policy and our subsidence management plan. We were hoping by the second meeting that they had had a chance to review that. They said that they needed a little bit more time. We have a meeting scheduled for this Thursday, which, in a couple days here.
Already tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yeah. What is today? I'm not even sure what meeting I'm in today. I was hoping, Kathy, you were gonna drive down here, because I wasn't sure which direction I was supposed to drive to. Tomorrow, so we have a meeting scheduled with them tomorrow. They sent an email last night, asking for some clarification on the allocation policy mostly. And we're pulling together some of that information that was, that they had requested. And then we're looking forward to meeting with them and continuing that conversation. The other thing, though, that they absolutely said that has to be included is this well mitigation program. That's why we're meeting here today. So, having said that, that is just a quick, brief update on where we're at for both subbasins. And I think we're going to jump right into the heart of the matter for today, which is the revised meter policy and the revised mitigation policy. We are currently still working on the revised meter policy. It's minor changes to it to clarify, clean up, do a few things.
Yeah, our meter policy has been in place for almost 5 years now, and it needed some revisions. Particularly, we're going to work towards meters that are that will work with telemetry. So some of that language is in there, and some language that also points to a possible reimbursement program for landowners who purchase telemetry compatible meters, as well as possible meters that have telemetry incorporated with them, and will agree to allow those meters to read directly into our data management system. So that was the reason for a revised meter policy. It's not quite there yet, so we're not going to have that in front of you today, but that's forthcoming. So
very quickly, because there's a draft.
Yeah.
So it's very quickly. We wanted the well mitigation became our priority because of the state, but there will be a draft meter policy for everyone to review as well. How did you get here? You were on the phone a minute ago.
Have we heard any updates?
I'm doing it.
Has there been any updates on the water smart grant?
So we've heard third party have told me that the Bureau now is starting to at least open those discussions.
They're looking at them, yeah.
Yeah, but we haven't heard anything specific on our application. So it's a sign that some things are at least now they're moving forward and looking, but we haven't heard anything specific.
Because as I recall, that was gonna be with 2026 funding. So, even though we applied, so maybe with the upcoming budget, that maybe there'll be some good news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just so everybody on the call and in the room knows, we did submit an application to buy meters through the Water Smart grant through the Bureau of Reclamation. And then the current administration put everything on hold for a while, but it looks like things have opened up again and they're starting to look at them, so.
It was supposed to be awarded, I think, no later than November, so keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Okay. Stacy, do you want to please pull up the well mitigation program, and we can walk everybody through this? And Myron, you have a copy right there.
Yeah, I only made one copy, so if anybody needs one, I can make one before you go.
Yeah, I printed one out now. Okay. I'm gonna walk y'all just through this, and then, the idea here is we're taking this to the board on the 7th, on the meeting on August 7th, for adoption by the board and an inclusion into our, draft GSP. Deanna talked about this already, but the reason we really needed to do this was, as Deanna already said, we had a program in place, and it's, the state has been pushing on the domestic well mitigation. Between this and subsidence, these are the two main hot button topics for the state down here. Everybody knows that. And it became apparent that with the robust, incredibly robust program that the Kauai subbasin put in place, that kind of set the standard of what the state was looking for. The Kauai had multiple meetings with the state. They went back and forth. Kern is in a similar boat, and frankly, the consultants are the same in both places, so the two documents are very similar to each other. So that kind of set a standard. Now, we are not asking everyone to do every single thing that Kauai committed to, but this hits the important and the key highlights of what those plans are inclusive. The second thing I want to make sure that everybody on the call is aware of is that there already is an existing agreement between Tri-County and Self-Help Enterprises. So if that agreement's in place, and Self-Help's all over this document in the role that they're going to play. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this as we get into the document some more about their key role in all of this. And then we're going to talk about the different mitigation tracks that we're going to do for domestic wells versus any other type of well. And then we're also going to talk about the process, how that happens, how the evaluation occurs. And then finally, we're going to talk about how all of this is going to be paid for, funding for it, how we're doing that.
Mayor, can I ask, just pause one question? What is our universe of domestic wells? What is our number in Tri-County on the Sioux side? How many domestic wells are we potentially?
We estimate potentially 14 could go dry over
Yeah.
the,
What is our
next 15
total
years.
number of domestic Tri-County?
Not a lot.
Not a lot.
Not a lot.
No, I mean, it can't be
So-
more than 20.
Yeah.
No, it's probably, it's probably around the 20. So the
Yeah.
14 number was,
I mean, we're talking so little compared to like Greater Kauai.
oh, yeah.
This,
I mean, a magnitude of like 10x or 20x
Yeah.
for Kauai.
this is a lot easier to stomach for Tri-County than
Yeah,
others.
yeah.
So having something less robust than others would be not prudent.
Okay.
Right,
So we're going through a lot of exercise for not a whole lot of exposure.
that's right.
That's right.
And I want to be clear.
I'm gonna make sure that we put that out there on the public.
No, yeah,
So,
that's
Because we're
right.
not talking that many domestics here.
No.
No, and it says that in the document.
Yeah.
The key here, though, is that 14 is based on the Oscar database. It is not based on our actual well registration, and with now that we have the well registration process underway, we're reviewing all of that. That's all going to happen in the future.
Yeah.
We went with the 14. It's not that many, and it's better to use the same number that the state has already seen from the previous submittals. So we didn't change that. And in fact, we actually upped it to 15 because we said, we'll just be conservative and include one in Tri-County, in Tulare Lake as well. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to walk you guys through this. The reason that you're seeing the slide on the front is because we made a big deal that self-help is an integral part of our program. They're already under contract. They have one phone number that everybody in the Tule subbasin can call if they have a problem with a well. That was important to us to make sure that, hey, if you're not sure which GSA you're in, whatever, there's one person and one entity that you can call out and get help and support on that. And that's a big deal for us. We really wanted to make sure that people are directed and made it as easy as possible for anyone. Deanna and I have checked this. Nobody currently is under the SAFER program that Self-Help is currently operating for the state of California. So nobody within Tri-County is on, bottled water or tank water because of a well problem, the domestic well problem. Okay, so we did check that with Self-Help, which is good. It means we don't have an existing problem to solve right away.
Did you get your truck back?
Oh. Okay, so, take the next slide, or next page, please. So there's a whole bunch of nice introduction about, you know, what Sigma means, you know, meeting our criteria for 2040. It talks about that this plan was specifically, this program was prepared for Tri-County because we are in both Tule and Tulare Lake. We can't just say, hey, we're part of the Tule plan or we're just part of the Tulare Lake plan, because we needed a plan that covered our areas and made it clear to everybody. So if there's a difference between the Tule plan and the Tulare Lake plan, nationwide, we don't care because this is our plan for our GSA. And that, we wanted to make sure the state didn't think that we were not uncoordinated or we were uncoordinated with the rest of the subbasin. It's not, we had to prepare as ours because we're in this unique situation where we cover two different subbasins. Probably sounded way more defensive than I meant on that. I just want to make sure people are clear as to why we're writing our own.
I would say it's more of a timing issue.
It's also a
We
timing
cannot
issue.
continue to wait
Right.
for the subbasins to come up with subbasin-wide plans that are not there yet. So, for the timing alone, I mean, someday this may get, you know, be replaced by a subbasin-wide program, if that's what ultimately the state, you know, how we move. But right now, we have to have our own.
So this program does cover you if for water levels dropping, it covers people for water quality, and it covers you if your well is damaged. Your well is damaged due to subsidence, okay? Your well, I'm not talking about other parts of, you know, infrastructure, but it is for the wells. Is that a question, Julie, or is that just stretching? Okay. All right. So, I just want to be clear that all of those are covered, and you're going to see that in some of the figures and graphics that are included in this document. Okay, the little next slide is or keep saying slides, the next page is the description of the Tri-County. For those of you that are following along at home, I'm on page 2. All right, next page is a nice little map of Tri-County. You will see that we have it broken up into the 3 management areas. The new GSP also is very clear about these management areas, and we will be talking in all future conversations with these 3 management areas in mind. So we've got the north, the southeast management areas, and mostly on the Tule side, and then we called everything else on Tulare Lake as the Tulare Lake management area. It's the same language that we used in the science management plans, and it's throughout the GSP now as well. Okay, next page. On the mitigation partners, this is where we talk about our collaboration with self-help enterprises. It goes through and it makes clear that the role of self-help. It also talks about the fact that the GSA will be responsible for the cost and reimbursing self-help for their expenses along the way. And I'm going to go through in detail in one of the graphics here in just a couple pages and walk you through exactly what the process for filing a claim looks like. The state has made it clear that they want the filing the claim to be as easy as possible, so we kept that in mind. That's one of the big reasons that we want self-help to be involved, because they are already doing this. People know who they are. Community members know who they are, and all the other GSAs, I guess with one exception, is using them as well. Okay, so let me walk you through the process. The idea here is, as an overview of the program, that there are 2 different tracks that you could end up on, depending on which track you qualify for. This is, again, very similar to what CUIA and Current have done, and what the Russell Tule is planning on doing. Depending on whether you are a domestic well.
Just trying to move.
Okay.
Who it is.
Yeah. mute yourself just because, we're getting a bunch of noise here in the room. Thank you. Okay, so, step one of this program is going to be outreach. And in fact, you know what, Stacey, why don't we just skip to the graphic on page 6? Yeah. And one thing you'll notice is we didn't reinvent the wheel on the graphics, okay? If there were graphics that the state liked and they tell me that they, you know, this was something that worked for somebody else, we kept them similar, we kept them, you know, as much as we could. It's just, you know, we don't need to, this wasn't about trying to prove how good your graphics department was, this was about what works for the state. And if these graphics work for the state, we kept them similar and just said, okay, this is the direction that we're headed as well. So, first things first, we're gonna do outreach. Outreach, and there's a whole section, I believe, later in the document, section 7, section 6, that talks in detail about the outreach program. The outreach is to go out, send out flyers in English and Spanish to everybody that the landowner within the GSA. Okay. We are also then going to meet with the community of Allensworth, specifically with them, make sure that there's a meeting with the community to inform them of this program. And then we are all, since we have a well registration program, we know and can get contact information for our domestic well owners, and we're going to make sure that they are all individually notified as well that this program is in place. And so, as Steve already said a few minutes ago, we don't have like these big communities or tons of them, and we've got like 20 landowners, 20 well owners, so we're not talking about a huge amount of domestic wells that could be impacted. So our outreach program is gonna be completed by reaching out directly to some of our well owners. And not only that, but if we find out someone else in the future, we're gonna, you know, try to get them registered and include them in the program as well. So, outreach first. Now, part of the outreach effort is to get the self-help phone number and website out there. So what we want is, if a landowner or a well owner, has a problem, they know they can just pick up the phone or get on the self-help website and start the process. Okay? If they contact the GSA, of course we're going to help them, but we're going to also then direct them to work with self-help, because self-help can step them through the process. So our website is going to have mitigation plan. It's also going to have direct links back to the self-help website and phone number. Okay. Somebody calls self-help. They say, hey, my well stopped working. Self-help is going to get out there. They're going to deliver them water bottled water, drinking water within 24 hours. Okay. Then they're going to work on getting them a tank so that they can continue to have water for other needs and supply as well. In the meantime, that person's then going to be walking through the process of filing the claim and working through everything. Yes, we will be delivering water to you, period. If you have a well, that anyone that calls us is going to get water. That is the least expensive thing that is a part of this whole process. And again, we're not looking at that many sites, and we're not overly concerned. And we'll talk about how much all this is going to cost in a second. So they will have interim drinking water supply. They'll have interim water. Then we'll start the qualification. We're going to assess what's going on. Self-help is going to work with drillers and electricians and everybody else to make sure the GSA is going to be involved at that time. We're going to be reviewing the data. If we need to go out to the site, we're going to go out and evaluate, ask any additional questions. Then the idea is to evaluate, how do we fix it? What is the fix, right?
And I would go back to the steps. In that initial evaluation, it may be that self-help comes back and says, this has, nothing to do with groundwater pumping, this well's having a different issue. And in that case, then that well owner goes off of our track, that they'll be with self-help, and then there's other funding and things for well owners through SAFER and other programs. But, so this, once they come onto the track with the GSA, it's because it's been determined by self-help that it is a groundwater pumping issue. Either groundwater pumping caused a water quality issue, or the well to go dry, or subsidence issue, collapse something. So it's got to be something that happened due to groundwater pumping, not due to something else.
Right. So then the next step is to determine what the best mitigation is. What makes the most sense? And in the document, you'll see there's a whole table of potential mitigation fixes that we might, mitigation measures that we might try to put in place. Depending on one of those, there'll be a recommendation. At that point, item 6, it goes back to the GSA for approval of what that mitigation measure is. Obviously, it has costs associated with as well. The board then, our board, is going to make the final determination, approve that, and as long as the landowner then signs into an agreement with us, a hold harmless agreement and an agreement for the funds and all those types of things, we're still going to work out the exact way that, let's just say for the sake of a discussion that we are going to drill a new well, all that process of exactly who pays or who contracts with a driller and all these things, that we're going to work through all that with self-help, and they're going through some of this right now through the work that they're doing in the Cahuilla Subbasin. And there's been some success and some challenges as well doing it that way. We want to make it as easy for the landowner to get the mitigation, and we want to make them quick. We don't want to be here 2 years later. And we know this because there are several people in other parts of the county that are, have been on supplied water for more than 2 years.
So at that particular point, you're gonna hand it over to self-help to finish the well drilling or something else, or is the GSA gonna stay involved?
We're going to stay involved,
Okay.
and exactly what our involvement is going to be, Kathy, we're going to work out.
We budgeted for, correct me if I'm wrong, but we budgeted for what self-help said it would cost to replace a well, and that would be going through them to do it. So, we may.
They would go ahead and maybe contract the work, but you would still
Yes,
have some oversight as a GSA.
yes.
Yeah.
And I think, again, because we have so few, I mean, if we were considering dozens and dozens of wells, then maybe we contract directly or we do something different, but the process is in place and with so few, I think it's probably the most efficient way.
So this is if you have a domestic well. Okay, I want to be clear, this is a domestic well tract that we're talking about. We're going to go through these steps. If you are on what we call the technical mitigation track, we're going to talk about that here in just a bit. It's going to be a little bit different. Okay, so questions? I don't know if anybody's hands up, so I can, okay. All right. So, section 2.1, look, we all know this program is going to be modified, changed, adapted as we go through this. And the first well that we have to address is probably going to be a little bit more of a pilot program, and we're going to iron out the kinks as we go along and make changes. And the fact is that this is an adaptive program. All right, section 3. The mitigation program track, as we said, if you are on the mitigation track, if you are a domestic well owner or a multi-use domestic well, meaning you have your ag well also supplies your drinking water, then we will also look at those and say we will replace a well that meets your drinking water needs. Okay, we're not there to replace a well that meets your ag needs. On the technical assistance side, these are the industrial, municipal, and small community well owners. We don't have a lot of these, but we do have the community of Allensworth. And if there's ever any future industrial wells installed in the area, we want to make sure that we have this. So the program, again, to keep in coordination with the rest of the sub-basin, we included the technical assistance track as well. On the technical assistance track, we are limiting that offer up to a total of $30,000. So if you come to us and you are a industrial user or whatever, and you have a problem with your well, and we need to provide technical assistance. Now, that technical assistance can be things like helping you with a grant application, doing some work up front to identify what the problem is, and then you know, making sure that people they know what resources that they can get. We could do all the way up to a well design, but they would then still be responsible for drilling and installation of their own well. So the idea here is we'll give you some technical assistance up to a maximum of $30,000. And again, in some cases, say for a small community, a lot of times they need either engineering support up front before they apply for the grant, or, you know, especially SRF funds, or they need matching funds. And that's the idea here, is that we can help you with some of those type of needs. Now, we're not writing you a check for 30 grand. We're going to write you, it's technical assistance, and we'll see what works best for each one of those cases. Okay. Section 4 is the well mitigation claims process. We walked through this already. Page 9 is the mitigation actions. We talked about the fact that there's going to be some immediate interim actions that we're going to take, making sure people have water, and then whatever the long-term action that after the full evaluation of that well is done. And table 4.1 on page 11 goes through and talks specifically about some of the options that we have for well mitigation for domestic wells. It's very clear, though, in here that it's not just limited to some of these. If it makes more sense to do something different, we'll do that on an individual basis. But it may mean, hey, sometimes it's just a matter of lowering the pump, all the way up to a replacement well. We can look at public systems connections. That works better in other places than it does out here in Tri-County. But these are all, some other alternative source of water. It all depends on the individual cases and where that property is located and how we can best do that. So that's a list of some of the mitigation. The application process on section 4.2 on page 12 then really starts to push everybody towards self-help. And then as far as the technical assistance is concerned, on the technical assistance side, let's say the municipality, if they still contact self-help is going to do an initial evaluation and immediately refer them back to us. And on the technical assistance side, GSA is going to be handling most of that ourselves. We don't anticipate seeing a lot of these at all, because we just don't have that many people that would qualify and wells that would qualify for technical assistance. We did have an issue once where fairly recently, one of Allensworth pumps went out, and our assistance was frankly providing them water for a limited amount of time until they could get that pump fixed over a couple, 4 or 5 days, something like that. Yeah. So, that's what the technical assistance is. I call it technical assistance, but it could be, it's just a matter of having the ability to respond to things like that. And believe me, we are going to make sure the state is well aware of the fact that we've already implemented some of these, processes. If you go through the technical assistance, essentially, it's very similar to the other one that I described, except it's a lot more consultation with the GSA directly, and the GSA then is going to determine what that technical assistance measure should be, and again, go back to the board for approval, and then provide whatever assistance or funding that we need to provide. But ultimately, in both cases, GSA board makes the decision on which, to accept the mitigation measure or not. That takes us actually to the next page, on page 14, which is 4.3, which is claims dispute. Let's say we deny your claim for your well, then the people have the ability to go directly to the board and appeal that process. There is an appeals process written. Ultimately, it is the decision of the board, the GSA board. Section 4.4 is the indemnification, which we basically say, look, if we're going to give you assistance funds, all these things, you are going to indemnify the GSA, and you're going to indemnify any of our program partners as well, so that we are all covered for things that the program partners and the GSA do. 5, eligibility criteria. So if we flip to page 15, there's a nice little graphic. And I'm going to probably modify this one just a little bit because there's a word missing that I just realized as I'm looking at it. And it really should make sure that this is clear, that this is the well mitigation criteria. So just, where you see TCWA, just after that, add the word well mitigation, because we want this to be clear that this applies to well mitigation. And specifically, because I have the word land subsides in there, I want to be sure that it's land subsides towards your well. So, criteria for your filing a claim is incredibly simplistic and easy. Did the impact occur after January 1, 2015? And was it because of lowering of groundwater, land subsidence, or water quality issues? And if that's the case, then we are going to move forward with your claim and do our full evaluation at that point. We want to make it as simple as possible for people. Now, I agree with all of you. You don't want to just, this is not a free-for-all, but the idea here is to make this as simple for someone who's experiencing dry wells and going through that, experience, which is, quite, if you turn on water, then we all know there's nothing coming out of the tap that can be quite traumatic, so we want to keep this as easy as possible. We encourage everyone to submit applications immediately. That we're going to do the outreach. We're going to make sure people understand that the program is in place. We are not reimbursing you for systems that have already been mitigated. So if you had a dry well and you've already fixed that problem, we are not reimbursing you for that. We give you a year. Once you file a claim and we have questions, need more data, we're giving everybody a year to submit that documentation. Otherwise, we reserve the right to deny that claim. Now, I'm not saying we will deny it. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying we got to have some time limits on things. Deanna and I went back and forth on this. Kern, in particular, had some more time limits and other restrictions in theirs. We opted, because of the small number of potentially wells that could be impacted, we opted, especially in our conversations with the state, to take those out and not include those because A, it's not that many wells, and B, we didn't wanna look like we were putting in more restrictions than necessary and try to keep this thing as easy as possible for the applicant.
Yeah, where are you and Deanna gonna go with water quality, groundwater quality data?
In terms of collection, or?
Well, no, a claim.
Well,
What are we gonna be mitigating for? What are their water quality?
groundwater quality, but it has to be something that's not, legacy.
Right.
So,
So that's a can of worms,
it is a can of worms.
Tri-County is proposing to deal with this can of worms.
So we're doing with the rest of the Tule sub-basin on the water quality. The Lower Tule and Pixie are the ones having that conversation directly with state staff. And so there's a draft document out there on how to handle water quality issues in the Tule sub-basin. And we're going to essentially incorporate that as part of this program.
Just protect us, you don't wanna have a lot of liability.
Yeah.
I think most of those mitigation measures have to do with, filtering
Yes.
water and
Yes.
not like trying to clean up the aquifer type of thing.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, we're not here to clean up the aquifer. We're not
But
even
when
here
people
to-
hear that though, you're gonna have people think, oh, my water tastes bad, so I'm gonna file a claim. I mean, I'm just saying you might have some really odd I just wanna make sure that
There is a process
the
that,
communication is clear to the
Right.
public that, hey, we're gonna mitigate for this, from things 2015 on,
Right.
like you said, not legacy.
Right.
definitely not legacy.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't have a huge nitrate issue in Tri County, fortunately. We do have naturally occurring arsenic.
Right.
That, has been here for long before Sigma. So, unless it's degrading further, those types of things. What else do we have? Do we have uranium?
There was one well with a,
So, I think what I'm trying to say is we're looking at what constituents of concern we have, and, whether those are groundwater pumping related, naturally occurring. There will be some vetting through the process.
we are including, installation or the selection, if we can find them, of more water quality monitoring wells. So if we can find existing people that will allow us to sample their wells, we'll use that. But
To establish baseline.
the GSP doesn't
Right.
specifically, now that we have a distribution through our well registration program, we know, you can literally see where a lot of, they're all clustered together. We were like, okay, we probably need a well in that area for, to serve as an RMS well for water quality.
Look out for us.
So the hope is that any water quality issue is addressed through filtration at the individual sources and not having to go out and drill new wells and all that kind of thing. Especially if it's a series of an area that has problems. Deanna made a very good point though, and she and I have had some conversations about this, is, exactly how do we prove some of the legacy issues, and that's an ongoing debate that we're having with the rest of the sub-basin right now, and exactly what our commitments are going to be. So if a well is identified, what exactly, there's a fix at the well, what does that mean for the surrounding wells? And that's what we're going through right now, that discussion. That's why I made a point to say the water quality issue isn't nailed down, but we're still submitting this thing before the September 1 deadline. Okay. The other thing I was gonna mention on this section, before we move on to section 6, is that this mitigation program will be implemented upon adoption, which is, fully expect to send this to the board in August meeting, and so August 25, this program will be in place. August 7th.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I meant 2025.
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah, August 2025, yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, so, the outreach program, we already talked about that. We talked about the fact that we have a well registration program, and that, decisions, as we get more information of the well registration, we'll continue our outreach efforts appropriately. We had in here, or I had in here, that you had to register your well before you got the support. At the end of the day, I think Deanna said, look, let's take that out. It's not necessary. Frankly, we were gonna let you register your well on the day of anyway. So it was an unnecessary confusion that the state tends to focus in on language
Yeah.
like that. They get laser focused, and then you end up with a, 2-month discussion just on that one topic, and it's better to take it out, so we did.
The state is suspicious that you're always trying to put a loophole in there
Yeah.
that will,
Yeah.
that will mean that you're not going to move forward with
Yeah.
the mitigation. So, things like, you don't qualify if your well's not registered, and they say, well, people don't even know about it, Al.
Right.
You're already disqualifying. So, language like that you have to be very careful about.
It's not worth it.
No, for 14 wells, it's definitely not.
It's not worth it. And I'm not kidding, guys. They'll spend the next 6 months talking about that one thing,
Mhm.
and we don't have time for that. Okay, funding. Let's talk about funding. So, we use an analysis based on the rest of the Tule Sub-Basin all agreed that they were gonna use $90,000 per well for budgeting purposes. Okay, that includes domestic water, emergency water, it includes the tanks, it includes the evaluation, it includes the installation of a new, well, up to a new well. So it includes emergency water supply and mitigation measures. So for budgeting purposes, we went with $90,000. The dry well, analysis at 14 wells in the Tule Sub-Basin and none in Tulare Lake. And since none looks, we didn't want to end up in an endless loop with the state. We just said, we'll budget for one, which rounds it up to 15 wells. So at a cost of $90,000 per well, we're going to set aside roughly $1.4 million for this effort. Now, that doesn't mean that $1.4 million is just going to be sitting there doing nothing. It is there, it's available, but it's there for the program. And that,
For the last 2 years too, the board has budgeted $1 million for mitigation each year. We haven't had to use any of that funding yet, but we've already budgeted for it the last 2 years. And it would be one of those, I don't see budgeting any more than that, but if we had, multiple claims, then we would replace whatever funding.
we basically say that we're gonna evaluate our budget every 2 years and look back and say, okay, hey, do we need to adjust this? Do we need to do anything? So it gives the board some flexibility every 2 years to look back at this program and say, so if we're wrong and it's more than 14, we adjust accordingly. But if we also continue our well registration program and we're like, it's gonna be one well, then we have some leeway to sit there and argue with the state and say, okay, we're not gonna keep 1.4 million, we're gonna reduce it down quite a bit too. Maybe it's 200,000, maybe it's, 250 or something like that. And we use those funds in a more appropriate manner. Okay. One thing you'll notice as we move on to the next page is that there's no forms in this document. And the reason for that is we're referring everybody to self-help. Self-help has forms. Self-help has online programs. Self-help will walk you through that form process. So rather than sit here and include some forms that are going to be outdated quickly, we said, look, we've already said you're going to contact self-help, so we just took all those forms out. Appendix A is just an indemnification agreement, and I still need to get Dave Cameron to, I don't think Dave's on the call, but Dave's going to bless this before, so this indemnification agreement may look different between now and the time that the board finalizes this document. All right, questions, comments, concerns? How are we doing time-wise? Okay.
We likely need to develop a form for, the technical track, because
Yeah,
something for the technical track, some sort of official form. And on the partners, did we want to add the Thule Foundation to all the partners section?
We certainly can.
No, it's in the one we've been looking at for the entire, but,
Yeah, both of those are easy fixes.
yes.
We already had the forms made up, we had opted to take them out, right? I did literally, take them out, so I'm just gonna put them right back in.
Who is the Thule Foundation?
The Irrigated Lands Program,
Yeah,
Sticky Salt.
you know, they already have
They
drinking
already
water
have them.
stations and different things. I mean,
The water quality side.
we're gonna deliver drinking water within 24 hours, but the Thule Foundation was definitely partnering, and I don't remember exactly how that whole partnership was supposed to work, but it's there.
We'll go back and look at what the truly overall
Yeah.
draft document looks like and include some language on the foundation. So, Myron, since you're paying for this, you know, as a grower in the room, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Questions, concerns, comments?
Oh, the only thing I had is the doubling up. You know, we,
Doubling up,
well, yeah, I mean, you got self-help, you got us,
yeah.
right? I mean, at some point, there better not be any finger pointing going on,
Yeah,
and then, you know, we don't technically have manpower to go do this, right? And I
Right.
hope that we don't need to put a budget in for that.
it's not our intent.
Yeah,
Right.
we have a contract with Self-Help that lays out exactly what their responsibilities are and what our responsibilities are and how we reimburse them.
So we're basically just overseeing it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. That's the only thing I was, when going through this, you know, and it says our responsibilities and this and that, I'm thinking, oh, you know,
Ultimate
Don't wanna
decision though,
know what-
still it's still, it's based on the board's decision though. The ultimate responsibility is ultimately back with the board. The board does get to decide, hey, yes, we are moving forward, this plan looks good, and they're going to make, you know, before significant funds are expended. Emergency water supply, we're gonna do that, that's
and
gonna
that's
happen.
that's self-help's
Yes.
responsibility, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's their responsibility to deliver it, but we reimburse them for
We
it.
reimburse.
What,
for it.
yeah, but,
Yes, that's the best part. I mean, when we were, discussing this with the state, they were very adamant that we were gonna do these things, deliver water within 24 hours, deliver a tank within 72 hours. And you start thinking about that as, you know, like, if I get a call on Saturday night, am I picking up cases of water and driving them to the house, you know, who's doing that? Just Stacy and I, but, so that was why
that's the thing that I was.
agreement with Self-Help became really important. Right? So
But
that's
even, you know, I would hope before the tank situation gets installed, that somebody went out there and said, is this just an electrical problem?
Right.
Or,
Did this breaker just need to be flipped,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Right.
And
So-
Self-Help has that capability, I mean, they've been doing this for a while now.
Right.
So they have it, a process in place, and when they contacted me, when Allensworth had a problem, they were very specific. They said, this is not a groundwater pumping problem, this is an electrical problem, that our funding's been taken away, and could you agree to supply the water for them until we can get the electrical problem taken, or until they can get it repaired? Yes, but that was, you know, in the
Good
realm of
neighbor,
something we could do. Yes,
help
good
out,
neighbor,
yeah.
let's do it. But they had already determined, you know, if they knew what it was, and they have a process in place.
Yeah, they have somebody that can go out on Sunday and check it out.
Yeah, right.
How's it working in Kuya? You mentioned, Amir, that they're ahead of us, right, in this process,
So,
the good and the bad.
good and bad
Yeah.
in Kuya.
We're modeling this after what they're doing.
Yeah, so what they're seeing in Kuya, they took care of one person who had, a smaller issue and addressed that, and Kuya proactively took care of that. There are several other claims that have been filed, and they're under evaluation right now. I know there's some of them are moving forward, and I think some of them are kind of lingering longer than Kuya would like. So there's a little bit of feeling in Kuya that, you know, let's push this along and move it along before publicity all kinds of other things, starts to look like that Quiz not doing things. So I know Quiz, there's been good and bad there. There's been people whose issues have been addressed, and there are other ones that they feel have been, taking longer than they would like to
So on the
see.
self-help side then, are you saying that they've already agreed to take care of these Kuya has?
Yeah.
And then self-help has not been able to follow
I
through?
don't have that level of detail.
That would be my concern,
Yeah.
because I would hate to contract with self-help and then realize that they don't have the organizational follow-through that we were counting on.
Yeah, so,
Which I don't know, I'm
Yeah.
just saying, I just.
I don't wanna despair them and.
No, I'm just curious, because aren't they working with Kern as well?
Yes,
I just,
so we do have that concern, but we are already we already have entered into an agreement with them.
right,
We just don't have that many wells.
no, I agree.
So,
I'm just curious what was happening in Kuya.
yeah, so Kuya, I mean, the number of potentially impacted wells,
Huge.
you know, plus in other parts of the Tule subbasin, that's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, Eastern Tule.
Yeah.
Huge. Portable area.
Yeah, that's a whole different ballgame. Our ones are, you know, again, that
No, it's fair. I
14
just was
is
curious
very
how
conservative,
it's
I
working.
think. Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that, so.
Yeah, I had some conversations with some people yesterday, or day before yesterday, about the Kuya, and this is all secondhand information. So I'm certainly not trying to despair, you know, self-help's ability to get this thing done. Who knows, Steve, maybe it's the landowner, right? The landowner could be dragging his feet, we don't know.
Thanks.
What else? I'm trying to think of anything else that, so our plan is, we're gonna get us comments by Tuesday, the 29th. Okay, if you have any comments, if you have any questions, if you have any concerns, just get a hold of Deanna, send in your comments. There are, you know, for those of you that are growers on the call, you know, there's there's funds gonna be expended towards this, and you should be aware of how those funds are being expended. Just to be 100% clear, there are no new fees, okay? There are no new fees. Repeat after me, there's no new fees in this. All this is using existing funds that we have set aside from the existing fees, pumping fees that we've had in place. And some of those funds are set aside specifically for this, so there's no new fees on this.
Right.
Yeah. So, nor do we anticipate, you know, that changing anytime in the future. The existing fees are more than adequate to cover this program. I think that's it. So the 29th, if you have questions, if you have comments, you have concerns, get them to Deanna by the 29th. Shortly thereafter, we're gonna finalize this document and send it up to the board for their review. Again, I mentioned there's a couple little tweaks on, you know, one of the figures and things like that we'll be making, and the indemnification language is, you know, 100% guaranteed to change. And whatever is derived, that's up to the lawyers, and it's, you know, I don't think any of you need to worry about any of that. Okay. Any last questions?
Any questions for anybody online on anything that we've talked about or haven't talked about? Any questions, anybody in the room, anything?
I just have one really quick question on 4.2. The technical assistance, it kind of goes with what you guys were talking about too. It says, following approval by the board, TCWA and the applicant will enter into an agreement acknowledging the amount of funding, intensive use, and indemnification. So that's gonna include self-help as well, correct?
On the technical assistance,
This technical assistance,
probably
not.
not, because
Okay.
for technical assistance, we're talking about municipal wells, we're talking about industrial wells, and we're talking about small community wells. If we need self-help, we'll bring them in, they're under contract, but we anticipate most of this in Tri-County being done through the GSA.
Okay, so Geofintech may help with that, or
Yeah,
something may help with that, yeah.
whoever, you know,
Whoever we have,
yeah, whoever's the appropriate person to assist.
so the subcontract with that, yeah.
Could be a driller, it could be, you know, whoever the right person to assist Tri-County in evaluating that particular claim. Again, it's technical assistance only, so, you know, we're only providing a support, we're not re-drilling your well for you. Okay,
So on that, of those three that you, industrial,
yeah.
we only have one and that's Allensworth?
Well, so, Myron, you know, the question is, could you argue that a dairy is an industrial facility?
I thought those were all omitted anyway, 'cause we're all part of the problem.
Part of the problem, yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
they say.
Yeah.
Anyway,
We left it in there because we, in case someone, you know,
but as of now, of those 14,
not, all those are all domestic, they're all 100%
so none of
domestic.
them are industrial,
No.
municipality or small community.
No, they're all
One
domestic.
weird question, the Bureau of Land Management's gonna be redoing their headquarters. I don't know how they're gonna all fit in here with everything, but we do have an MOU with them, so hopefully Tim will be talking to USA.
Okay, 29th, keep that date, and then the two upcoming meetings for everybody. There's a board meeting on August 7th here in Corcoran at 1 o'clock. And, keep your, and of course you can call in as well to those meetings or Zoom in. And then our next advisory committee is on August 27th at 10 a.m. Again, you can Zoom into those, and we would love to see you here in Corcoran as well. So those of you that can make it, please come on down. On that meeting, well, probably well before that meeting, we'll have the metering program, and we'll have more information on exactly the final the final draft GSP and the process for, public review and comments. Okay. Any last questions? Otherwise, we're gonna wrap up early today to make up for some of the meetings. Oh, come on, Montserrat, you can't. We were so close.
How long will the public hearing be for the GSP, for the public comment period? Like 30, 60 days?
We haven't decided that, but it'll be a minimum of 30 days.
Yeah.
It could be, we could open it for 60, we just haven't made that final determination.
It depends how quickly we get it out.
Yeah,
Because we're going for adoption in October, so.
yeah.
10 minutes.
That's
Yeah.
right. 2 days.
So, yeah, the key deadline though is that September 1st deadline, and that's the one that we absolutely positively are not gonna miss.
So the draft document will be out before September 1st, and it will be approved hopefully sometime in October. That'll give you at least 30 days.
Yeah, there you go. It's not, you're gonna, the policies, and the appendices you've all seen, you've all been part of, okay? The 90% of the old document from the 22 is the same. So there's not as many changes. There's been a lot of effort put in because it's been focused on the policies and programs.
Yeah. Really, the policies that we've adopted are they really supersede the GSP.
Yeah.
The GSP is a
Yeah.
technical document, it shows how, where the basin setting, and how, you know, all the minimum thresholds and measurable objectives and all of those things, but the heart of what we're doing for implementation is really in the policies that the board has approved in this mitigation policy.
Yeah, and like on the MTs that Deanna just said, you've all seen the MTs because you've seen the subsidence management plan, right? So there's gonna be zero surprises in this document when you guys get it. You've all been part of the process of getting to it. All right, in that case, we are done. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next month, and please come to the meeting on August 7th.
Kathy, sorry I walked in.